markets have been very weak this week. I mean, started September off with one of the largest declines ever for September. And it's kind of coming on the heels of Nvidia reporting great numbers last week, but the stock being weak. So I think maybe the good place to start is just talking about Nvidia, and I think your take on how, what you thought of the quarter, and how it came in relative to your expectations and pick them up.
Yeah, look, Tom, I mean, I think that it was probably the most anticipated earnings that we've seen, I don't know, in a decade or ever, right? And in terms of watch parties and everything else, for Nvidia, just take out the noise in terms of numbers and in terms of what happens. Blackwell delays put to rest. Think about all the agita over the last few months on that. And that's similar to what we're seeing in our checks throughout Asia. Demand, we believe demand's outstripping supply at 12, 15 to 1. And nothing we saw from numbers or metrics makes me think that that's dissipating. Now, look, in terms of like whisper numbers for the quarter, 33 billion, 33 and a half. They got 32 and a half, slightly below whisper. Stock gets hit. We look, 2 billion beats, we believe are probably likely here, right? But they're not. There's no reason that Jensen and the team are going to guide to anything near that, especially in a Blackwell type quarter. And I think you walk away, the demand thesis is accelerating. Yields are improving. And ultimately, I think it sets up for actually the next leg of the story. Now, look, I get where like sell-up happens, investors be like, oh, is this it? Is this over? It's second inning in a 9-inning game in terms of overall AI, because it goes back, and this is the most important. If there's anything anyone takes away from this call, it's for every dollar spent on an NVIDIA chip, the multiplier for the rest of tech is $8 to $10.
Stock market aficionados, brace yourselves. In a move that's shaking up the financial landscape, Nvidia has once again shifted gears, moving from strength to strength in a fashion that leaves both investors and tech enthusiasts breathless, especially the likes of Dan Ives, who has gone on the record to predict that Nvidia stock will multiply soon beyond any doubt. While the company ascended as the torchbearer of the AI revolution, it's their current sprint that's capturing all the hype. We're talking jaw-dropping returns and some seriously ambitious future projects. But Nvidia's story is more than just impressive figures. It embodies a vision of technological advancement that resonates deeply across various industries. Today, we're diving into the details of how Nvidia's impressive performance and bold predictions are shaping the future. But first, let's keep a couple of names in mind: Meta Platforms and Alphabet. Yes, they're big players in this unfolding narrative. Stay tuned, because the best is yet to come. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Investocracy.
No, but Tom, I think it speaks to just we're in a period where the type of technology innovation is unlike anything we've seen. You could say start of the internet, and I can maybe say fourth industrial revolution type stuff. And I think if you stick to some of these names and you start to trajectory it out, base case, bull case, where can numbers go? That's where all of a sudden, like, you're not talking valuation in terms of PE over the next year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, these are really big story arcs. There's a tangential question, which is, do you see an Apple car in the next few years? And how large a market do you see for the Vision Pro?
So we believe Apple car is 2026. And it potentially is announced at some point later this year, where you start to get tea leaves. We believe it's an OEM deal that Apple's not going to ultimately, very similar to the Foxconn relationship, where you'll have like a VW, an Apple version. It potentially, there's a handful of automakers I think they're talking to.
Like it's a coach maker, I guess, as they call it.
Well, it would be almost like an Apple version of an automotive. They'll have ones in US and they'll probably have one in Asia. Now, obviously, we've been talking originally, we thought it was 25, now 26. But it goes back to, like, you look at some of the innovation happening. Vision Pro, today it's 3,500 for developers. 2 years from now, those are sunglasses for $1,200 with 300 apps. They're now going into the next phase, and I believe it's going to be Cook's crowning achievement is this next 2 to 3 years. From Vision Pro to the AI App Store to the Apple Car. And when I talk about Apple Car, that's where autonomous is going to be so important in terms of, our view that by the end of the decade, 5% of cars on the road are going to be autonomous.
The stock market can be a roller coaster, but unlike those who merely survive the ride, Nvidia seems to be the one designing the whole amusement park. Since early 2023, Nvidia's shares are up by a staggering 600%. Need we say more? But let's not forget, this isn't their first rodeo. From early 2020 to late 2021, they had already dazzled with a 400% climb. However, it appears that the days of meteoric rises might slightly decelerate, though not in a way to keep investors up at night. Major tech giants like Meta Platforms and Alphabet have kept their checkbooks wide open, pouring massive investments into data center infrastructure. This relentless funding could be a sustaining force, even as Nvidia's year-over-year revenue growth eases. To bring some levity into our discussion, here's a little stock market humor. Why don't stock market experts ever read novels? Because the only numbers in novels are page numbers. Okay, back to serious business. Nvidia's Q2 growth of 122% was phenomenal, but it did mark a slight slowdown from the breakneck speed of previous quarters, projecting around 80% growth for the current period. It's a bit like driving a high-speed car. Sometimes you have to ease up on the accelerator, but you're still moving pretty fast. But where is Nvidia headed next, you ask? Enter the world of autonomous driving. Their automotive arm generated a decent $346 million in Q2. Not earth-shattering, but CEO Jensen Huang has loftier ambitions. He envisions a staggering $300 billion market potential for Nvidia, which includes software and hardware embedded in vehicles and data centers integral to an autonomous vehicle network. This isn't wild speculation. Firm analyses align with Huang's optimism, calling this one of the largest AI-driven industries in the making. Sure, it might sound a tad over the top coming from the CEO, but there's substance to this vision. While we may still be a few years away from seeing truly autonomous vehicles whizzing down the freeway, progress has been steady and promising. If things align, Huang's $300 billion dream might not be so far-fetched after all. The timeline? Potentially before the decade closes out. But before we go any further, if you want to keep up with Nvidia's latest updates and keep up with the stock market's latest news, you can follow our Twitter account. We post multiple times daily about the biggest changes and catalysts in the market, so click the follow button if you don't want to miss the newest market updates. Now, back to the video.
Yeah, look, I think you have to put in the context of broader tech. I mean, Apple, of course, Google, we'll have another trial next week. I mean, that is just sort of the tone in the Beltway. I mean, we are just going to see some of those drum rolls. Look, we're not too concerned about this for Nvidia. I think just because when you actually look at what's happened here from an execution, the reason that they've essentially dominated it is just because how stellar the execution has been and how they've just been so far ahead. AMD and others will ultimately get into this sort of race, but I just view this as more of a scarier headline than the reality. And also in the context of what's happened in big tech, Nvidia is just part of the club that continues to be part of that pressure, Beltway versus big tech.
Part of the accusation is that it's harder for suppliers to switch, it penalizes buyers. What is the worst case scenario here? Is it a chip, a mini chip or fissure in the moat, the grand moat around Nvidia?
Look, the moat is what Jensen and Nvidia have created, right? I mean, and that's not going to change. And I can almost take the other side. Okay, DOJ is looking into this. Rather look into this, give some sort of all clear so it's not a concern. I mean, look what we've dealt with the likes of Apple, Google, Amazon, some others for a number of years. But I don't think it changes that. And I think the reality is they are the only game in town. And nothing's changing that. From an innovation perspective,
when you talk about $1 trillion of AI capex over the coming years, where NVIDIA is going to get a significant piece of that.
NVIDIA is also exploring new frontiers with their advancements in quantum computing and deep learning. These sectors are still in their infancy, but hold incredible promise in reshaping industries ranging from healthcare to finance. Imagine a world where complex problems in drug discovery or financial modeling are solved in seconds rather than years. NVIDIA's leadership in AI and GPU technology places them at the forefront of these revolutionary changes. Moreover, their recent collaborations with leading automobile manufacturers and tech giants further solidify their market position. Partnerships with companies like Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, and BMW underline NVIDIA's commitment to dominating the autonomous vehicle space. It's a strategic play, leveraging their world-class AI technology to create smarter, more efficient, and safer vehicles. These alliances ensure a steady pipeline of innovation and market share growth for NVIDIA. Another intriguing aspect of NVIDIA's growth strategy lies in edge computing. As more devices become interconnected and the need for real-time data processing grows, edge computing becomes increasingly crucial. NVIDIA's Jetson platform, designed for robotics and edge AI applications, is gaining traction, showing promise in sectors such as retail, manufacturing, and logistics. This diversification not only opens new revenue streams but also mitigates risks associated with over-reliance on a single market segment. From a financial standpoint, NVIDIA's cash reserves are robust, enabling them to make strategic acquisitions and investments that bolster their technological capabilities and market reach. Their prudent financial management, coupled with aggressive research and development, continues to pay dividends, literally and figuratively. With their cash coffers well stocked, NVIDIA is primed to explore and capture emerging market opportunities, positioning itself as a resilient force in the technology space. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
It does change a bit. But I think the reality, look, we've talked about it on the show, strong have gotten stronger. I mean, you talk with your previous guys about Mag 7 and big tech. That's not going to change. In other words, big tech are going to get stronger. And I'd argue with AI revolution, that's actually accelerates. And we'll see next week, when Apple launches iPhone 16. So to me, it is changing of the climate, but I think it just speaks to just tech is just going to become a bigger and bigger piece. And big tech, even through M&A, I think that's going to be the biggest variable. FTC con, where that all goes, depending on political climate. I think it's all added to some of the agita as once September hits, going into the elections. I think that's also some of the sell-off that we've seen, just some of the nervousness going into the fall.
Well, Dan, you're in Asia at the moment. Part of that trip will involve, I presume, seeing people that feed into this supply chain. Two things I want to know about is how do they see demand holding up? You got the iPhone launch coming up. And secondly, how much conversation are they having around the political change here, the risk of new tariffs towards Asia?
Yeah, great questions. I mean, look, the reason, there's a second trip to Asia in the last month, got to see where demand is, right? I mean, you're not going to find it in the spreadsheets or 10th floor of a New York City office building.
NVIDIA is painting a picture of the future that's hard to ignore, and even harder not to get excited about. As their stock soars and their visionary projects gather momentum, opportunities abound for savvy investors. While autonomous driving remains in its nascent stages, the anticipated explosion of this market could skyrocket NVIDIA's value even further. They stand in a position of strength, not just retained, but continually bolstered by industry giants like Meta Platforms and Alphabet. At its current trajectory, NVIDIA's stock holds strong promise, and the forecasts indicate sustained growth. Now is a compelling time for those contemplating adding NVIDIA to their portfolios. After all, isn't it exciting to be a part of a tech revolution poised to redefine our everyday experiences? What are your thoughts on NVIDIA's remarkable journey? Could this be the peak, or is it just the beginning of an even steeper climb? Share your insights. We'd love to hear from you. And finally, if you would like to know what companies like NVIDIA have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there!